here at the DOAGH Famine Village. Not really sure how you pronounce that. DOAGH. It's probably DOAGH. Okay, we get inside. See, it's very low. I suppose in the past it's a good height. We're inside this station.
That's €4.
Anybody went on a tour, we're all going this way here, anyway. If you want to go on it. So what happens is, my name is Pat, so I'll just bring you to one end and then we'll leave you. And you come back in through the houses later at your own pace and do your own thing. So here's all about the 1900s. The famine and other things is behind them houses and it's completely different. This part's not long ago. So this house, myself, my family, we lived in this one until 1984. If you had to come here in 84, come down to this bottom half a door with 3 slate roofs. Every house in the area was a thatch roof, except for 3 houses, and that was 1984. If you're not from Ireland, you'll be wondering what changed Ireland. Looking back now, the big change is us becoming part of that European common market. The big thing it does, it takes away trade barriers. And for the first time, a small country, a small population could sell to Europe and across the world. And all because we can sell to different countries. Companies all right and from America, Canada, elsewhere, they manufactured here and they created jobs. And they used Ireland as their base so they could sell to European countries also. So the company came to Inishowen at the beginning, was an American company. They called it Fruit of the Loom, just made t-shirts like this. And one time locally in Inishowen was employing up to 2,000 people. 3,500 across the top part of Ireland. Today if you go down to the south like Dublin, Cork, Galway, it's all different today. There's computer companies, internet companies, medical companies. But that's what gave us the kickstart we are today. So later now, see as you go through here, the message you should get by going through here is when the country can't sell goods, it finds it very hard to survive in this world. We can manufacture all we want, but see if they ever stop buying from Ireland, we'll go back to the very start again. Everything we do in Ireland today is completely dependent on trade, being able to sell it to other countries. So when we lived in this house, there were 6 of us in it. There was 2 boys, there was 2 girls. That 2-story building was the barn there. So we've joined the 2 together for what we're at today. Because there's only one bedroom. The bedroom is 2 beds, but you go into the kitchen, there's 2 beds in there too. So in the kitchen there's a big bench, we call it a settle bed. So at night time that folds down, you sleep inside like a box. You get out of bed in the morning, you fold it up as a seat for you to sit on. For these young people, don't forget to go into that stone building up there. You'll see how the beds open up and how they work. Now every kitchen has a kitchen bed, so this one on here has curtains on it. The one up the street has doors on it. If the house is 1 bedroom, a kitchen bed is a private room. You lie sleep in bed in the kitchen, keep the doors closed, and outside the bed they sit and work beside you at the fire. Children keep asking who'd sleep in a bed in the kitchen, but across the world farmhouses were similar. Most of them always had a grandparent in them. The deal was you inherit the house, you inherit the farm. The deal is you have to look after your parents. There's no nursing home in them days. The only problem with your grandparents sleeping on a bed in the kitchen, your grandparent was able to control the whole kitchen from the bed. And they said all day long, the orders kept coming out of that bed. Then you go through the house and the next thing you notice our beds are short. But they're a different habit of sleeping to us. A lot of people would sit upright with pillows behind their back. The problems with their chest, the TB, the asthma, they breathe easier for sitting up. See, Europeans come here, they tell us their beds were even shorter than ours. Their way of thinking was you're lying flat, brought death. But if you talk to older people, they say that's the way people thought them days. If you had a heart problem or a chest problem, there was always that big fear. If you lay flat, you may not get up in the morning. If you didn't get up in the morning, the way they explained it them days was, well, you drowned it in your sleep. And that means your lungs fills up with fluid. That was the fear they had. So if you had a heart problem and you had a bit of money, you'd have one of these about you, that was the backrest. That sits on the bed and that keeps the head up. Hoping that doesn't happen to you. Go you into hospital tomorrow, and sure the nurse will sit you up tomorrow too. Well, the doors in these houses are low, but older people tell you it's nothing to do with the height of the person. They tell you the bigger you make any door, sure the bigger the draft becomes. So you live along the coast, they say, keep that door as small as you can and try and keep this house warm. Now this is what you eat every day. So this here is a seaweed called slook seaweed. It grows in rocks and white sandy beaches, and you boil this and you eat it long potatoes. Some people fry this with butter. See if you don't like this, know what your mother told you to do. She told you tomorrow to go to the beach yourself tomorrow, but make sure you pick something you like. There's nothing else to eat. And then you come up all these different seashells. And again, they're boiled, and when the meat left the shell, we know they're cooked. If the meat doesn't come out of the shell with the boiling, you never touch it. And the same with mussels, there's 2 shells in a mussel. If the boiling can't open it, you never open it. Because older people's belief is, a boiling doesn't separate the meat from the shell or doesn't open it. It's long, long dead before you ever cooked it. See, if you were here 45 years ago, that's not long ago, this was just normal food, and this is how people lived in this area. Where you come from, even a mile, 2 miles up the road there, you could see it changing faster. What makes a place that gets slow at changing compared to your place is so remote out here. 45 years ago, most houses here hadn't yet got a car. We grew up in this house, we had no car. And that meant especially older people before us, like my parents, on their lifetime, they'd never been far away from here. The furthest my father was ever away from here in his life was hospital, because there's no transport. And the way older people explains it, they tell you the more you travelled, the more things you see. And the more things you see in the world, the more things you want. They always tell you if you don't see them things, you're never going to want them. And they said what changed life for them was television. The TV came into the area and they quickly realised what other people had. They could see it on TV, and sure, young and old wanted them things. Now, this one here is a seaweed there called dulse. You must know this one, seaweed. Dulse, you dry that, you chew it, you buy it in the shop today. A bit like eating chewing gum today. The problem with seaweed is, if you started eating this one today, there's a really good chance you'll still be eating it tomorrow. You like it. And then, this one here is a seaweed called slack mara. That's an Irish word, it means the rod from the sea. Every morning the mothers headed out to the beach. They brought this off the beach, made a ring, cut off the rough part, keeps the ring, and that's the teeth ring for the babies, bottomless teeth. So you have to remember, there's no plastic that time, there's no dummies, there's no dodos. And imagine a baby cried all morning. That's how you sort them out there. And the baby wants it because it's salty. When your baby got this one, you would never take what you buy in the shop. See, when you buy in today's shop, there would be no taste of that one now. There's a good taste of this one. And then, that there's a seaweed called carrageen moss. And carrag is an Irish word which means rock. See, if you drive around Ireland, you see so many places called Carrick today, like Carrickfergus, Carrickmacross, Carrick-on-Shannon, Carrickmore. See, for the older people this year, when they hear the word Carrick, first thing they think about is that place must be full of rocks. They would never call it Carrick unless there was a lot of rock there. The place the seaweed is used mostly here today is the hospice. This gives people strength when they're sick and they're ill. So you boil that seaweed with milk, and after you boil it with milk, you run it through a strainer, you throw away the seaweed, and you keep the hot milk. And when the milk went cold, it became like jelly, like ice cream, very easy to swallow, and gives the sick person strength quickly. You pay good money for it now in the hotels as desserts, and all you ladies notice it the most. Today this is the ingredient for your makeup, and that's what makes the creams, the powders, the eyeshadows, but sure, even your lipstick. This is what sticks it there to your skin. There's a gelatin in it, and because it's natural gelatin, top makeup companies use it. Or see, when wallpaper came out at the beginning, that's how everybody hung it to the walls. So it acts as paste, and that's why today it's now sticking to your skin. It's paste.
Wow.
And then, the land here is really poor land, sand. And what is well as sand is rabbits. And there were so many rabbits here. They sent rabbits the whole way from here to London. That was the war years. Britain was fighting wars, and nobody in Britain was left at home to look after food. Britain had a big scarcity of food. So the whole of Ireland, north and south, supplied Britain with rabbits, and that's what helped defeat Britain. They sent rabbits from here to Dublin for people eating Dublin to 1977. The only reason it ever stopped came a disease into a rabbit known as maximatosis, and people in Dublin says they're not going to eat rabbits anymore. That ended the whole thing. The rabbit season every year ran from October to March, and while you stop in March, you allow time for the rabbit to breed again, because you want to catch more next year. So at the end of every season, the farmer here did a deal with farmers on the other side of Inishowen, and that farmer went out and caught about 60 rabbits alive. He put them into bags alive. The farmer here would do the same, and both farmers would agree to meet up halfway, and when they met up, they swapped over the rabbits. And you brought all his rabbits back to your farm, and you let them free on your land, and the plan is you change the breed every year, so they didn't become related to one another. And they multiplied quicker because of that. See, older people warn us if you farm any animal, even your hens, if you don't change the breed of the hens every year, someday you'll look out, there's very few hens. They breed themselves out. But the first thing you notice on a farm them days, and still could be seen today, the farmer who doesn't change the breed of his animals, the newborn animals born on his farm, they're thin and small. And older people would say to you, there's no use enough to Dublin, a big load of thin, small rabbits, expecting them people to eat them. Thin rabbits a year means they'll never buy them off you next year. You lose the whole market you have. Now, Now we're surrounded by the sea, the water, but we're different where you come from. They never fished with a boat here. We don't have a pier. The tide that surrounds the area is called Trevega Bay. It's well known as treacherous water, sandbanks, rocks, strong currents. It's only recently in the last 15, 20 years, we have a new trend among young people now. When they go to school, they all want to learn to swim and everybody wants to jump off a pier. But in the past, nobody could swim. I can't swim, but nobody here could swim. That still would be the belief of most of this community. Their way of thinking would be, you're better off not being able to swim. Because the way they think is, if you can't swim, it means you're not going to the water. Sure, if you're not out in the water, you'll never get drowned. The fear is thinking that you can't swim. Because you think you can, you go into the water, and when you're in the water, you realise you're not that good at it. Too late then. See that tide that surrounds this area? That's different to other tides in Donegal. When that one grabs people there, it never lets anybody go. You're gone. So they came out of the water, they stayed in the land, and they fished at the land with a long pole like this here. That's the fishing line. And they start to fish that around August of each year. But 2 weeks before you went fishing, there's a rule among the community. Every house on a different day took it on their own turn, and they went to the spot where you fish at low tide only with boiled potatoes. You mashed up the potatoes and you threw the potatoes out into the water. After a few days, all the fish got used to being fed. They all gathered there every day at low tide, and there they are, waiting for you to come and feed them with potatoes. We're surrounded by the sea, but you're only worked in 2 places. The famous place where you can do that is right below where you park the car. The next place is a mile further up the bay. And up the bay, things were different. The fish is far out in deep water. So you make up a sling, and you land the potatoes out a long distance where where the fish is. And every time you send out these potatoes, you shorten the distance, you see. And the fish in the deep water would follow the potatoes to the shore. So when you got them close to shore, the fish stayed about, and now they waited to get fed. So the fish they caught, local people put their own name on them, calling them pickers. But they're young pollock. And you catch about a buck of them every day. They only stayed in the bay for the months of August and September. But they caught enough fish in 2 months, they kept a family going for the winter. But nobody had a fridge. What you do then is you must salt them. So you get the fish then, and you cover them in salt. Now you don't add water to them, you add fresh water to the whole thing rots, you see. Salt and fish marinates together. These fish I've shown you here, but they're since February, you see. Come back you at Christmas, you can still eat them at Christmas. Put them into your fridge for 2 weeks, and after 2 weeks you smell them outside the fridge. There's no smell of these. You can smell them there. No smell. And then children keep asking, now, where did you get salt from? You young people know, you should try this out. So what they did in the past, they went down to the sea, and you must take water out of the sea. You put it in a big pot, and you boil the pot till the water disappears. You look in the pot, there's no water, but there'll be salt at the bottom. But there's a catch in that now. Some bays have more salt than others. That one that surrounds us, you can boil water all day, you never see salt. There's too much fresh water in it. Others become famous for it now, some got named after it. There's a bay in Donegal you may come across called Port Salon, which is the port of salt, you see. And then, them shells there, we call them winkles, you might call them periwinkles. And say this is a black and white meat. You boil these, you get a pan, you take out the meat. Some people dip them in vinegar. You start eating them and then you realise you can't stop eating them. Other people make soup for them. There's what's known as winkle soup. So you're never stuck, you see. Now these ones here again, this is the winkles here, this side of the plate. That's the one I've been showing you in the last plate. And this one here has got a different one. This has got the winkle one, the one we eat, it's got a black shell and a black and white meat. This has got a white shell and there's a white meat in this one. We call these whelks, but if you show that to any older person, they tell you that's a dog whelk. And then we get from the sea here that you're not supposed to eat. To warn you about it, the older people put the word dog in front of it, and that reminds you not to eat it. So we have dog fish, for example. We have dog crabs. Now this is dog whelks. So growing up along the shore, hearing the word dog means don't eat it. Now inside that there's a pure white meat. You come home from school in the 1970s, you got an empty bean can, you head down to the shore and you fill your bean can to the top of these. You bring it up to the house, you get 3 or 4 spoonfuls of sugar, you put it into the bean can, you give it a good shake. And then you got scalding hot water, you fill it to the top for no more than 30 seconds. You quickly empty out the hot water, now you take the bean can with you with these in it and the fishing rod and you head it off to fish. When you go down to the shore, you get a stone, you break open the shell, you take out that white meat, you put the white meat on the hook for fishing and the fish thinks that's a potato. And that's how you caught the fish. See, if you put a boiled potato on a hook, it washed off, you see. This stays on. If you scald that for more than 30 seconds, the meat becomes too tender, too soft, it falls off the hook. Or if you put winkle meat on the hook, there's blackness, this is the one we eat, there's blackness in this, doesn't look like a potato, and the fish doesn't go for it. It doesn't work at all. The idea of sugar on it, if you're into fishing, you'll know this yourselves, without sugar, fish will come up and nibble at your bait. Sometimes he goes for it and sometimes he doesn't. Plays about with it. If you put a sweetener on the bait, the fish comes up, he nibbles at it, he likes the taste of it. Instead of playing about with it, he grabs it before another fish can get it. It means you're catching them all the time. It's tricks to use. The idea of feeding fish was done across the world. Australia and New Zealand calls it burley. America, Canada calls it chumming. And in Britain today, feeding fish is called ground baiting. So we have a local guy here. He's married to a girl from Russia. She brought her parents here. And her parents explained to everybody that their parents back in Russia had always used potatoes for feeding fish. They're doing the very same thing as us. Now, there's no running water here till 83. In 83, the community came together as a group and they brought the water from a mountain. So first time running water and first time toilets, 83. Council water, government water came here 2005. It doesn't matter where you are in the world, you live at the end of the road, you see. You're the last to get everything. So everybody has to have a well in their own land. If it's on your neighbour's land, there's always a fear you'll fall out of the neighbour and the neighbour stops you from having water. So some people have a special gift. You might have this gift, you'll not know you have it unless you try it out. You're called a diviner. And your job is to go to the fields and search the water underneath the ground. The father could do it, none of us could do it. So each weekend he's off with a stick, it has to be made from hazel. And he walks up and down people's fields and all of a sudden the stick would rise up like that. The energy was in the person who was the diviner, but the rest of the energy was on the ground. And when the two things came together, the energy in the ground pushed the stick upwards. If the diviner held against it and didn't allow it to rise, you'd watch with your own eyes the stick bending at the point. And next thing you hear a crack, it broke the stick. Now some people use a coat hanger wire to do it. But people here are reluctant to use a wire. They all notice anyone that uses the wire, this brings severe arthritis to your body quickly, especially your hands. You make the same shape of this with the wire. The difference between the wire and the stick, when the stick comes under pressure, it bends, it breaks, it's all over. But the wire just wraps itself up in knots. The energy to do it while it's happening continues to come out of the person. So as that person gets older, the hands become deformed and finally close. They're not open. The problem when your hands are closed like that, your nails don't stop growing. Your nails goes through your skin. And you're in and out of hospital getting the hands opened up. But he tells you there's water here, but then you'd all come along and you'd all say, give me a go at it. Wouldn't work for us. But how the diviner convinced everybody it works, he stands there's it working. You take the stick and nothing happens for you, you don't believe in it. He tells you hold on to the stick, see as you're holding on, he comes up behind you, either pulls up your sleeves or pulls back your shirt. He rests his hands on your shoulders. The energy that's in his body, whatever it is, it transfers from his body, it runs through your body and the whole thing's working. And until that happens, nobody convinced it works. The farmer then, he comes along and he wants you to tell him how far down you have to dig down to get this water. So how they worked that out, so that was to say the strongest energy there. So right round there's a circle of energy to get there. And the closer the water to the top of the ground, the smaller the circle becomes. So every foot down you go down to find water, your circle grows out a foot wider. So say it's 10 foot deep, it's 10 foot wide the circle. So he'd say that's the centre of the circle, that's the strongest energy. He steps back and keeps going back until the energy leaves the stick, so nothing happens here. He marks it on the ground there, that's outside the circle, but he measures from here to there. That tells you roughly how many feet down you dig down to get it. He could tell you it's 20 foot down, it's too deep, that one. You have to try somewhere else and get it closer to the top. But then he got it for you, you could be half a mile away from your house. They never told you go out and play when you come home from school. They handed you 2 buckets, and you're told go down to the well and take up 2 buckets of water. So what you do then is, you fill these buckets of water, and now you're coming home and they're heavy and they're banging against your legs. You try to avoid that and keep it out like that. But it doesn't matter how strong you are, by the time you get home they're banging against your legs, you're all wet and you've only 2 half buckets of water. So what you do then, as you see, you now make one of these. And then you run home with that, you see. And because that you can carry all day and you never get wet, it floats around you. The ones that come here who are most interested in this one is secondary schools. Their teachers all into physics. How they explain it to students, they talk about famous buildings in the world. They were designed from this way of thinking. Some people talk about bridges, like the Forth Bridge of Scotland. This was the model for the thinking of that bridge. That's what keeps it hanging. We understand it, don't get a cord and tie it to the bucket and hang it to the roof. It hangs down 90 degrees. That's what weight does naturally. So I'm hinged at both shoulders and both buckets are hanging at angles. See that bucket out there? It'll never stop pushing unless it hangs 90 degrees. That bucket will never stop pushing unless it hangs 90 degrees. That frame stops that from happening because both buckets wants to come on the way. That bucket there is actually pushing against this bucket. They say they can't do 2 things at the one time. They can't push and fall. They tell you if something's pushing, it means it's not falling. And if something's falling, that means it's not pushing. And that's the reason you'll carry it further and everything about it better. It's a wee simple idea. But teachers will say to all their students, no, every idea we have in this world, it has a beginning. And it's up to young people now as you go through life to take your time and look at each idea and just wonder, could you improve on it and make it a better idea? Because everything we have in this world is there to be improved on. But the way older people explain it, they have a different way of looking at it. They tell you sometimes sitting back, watching and looking is far better than working. They'll get more done that way. Because the way older people explain it now, you could be hard working. There's somebody sitting at the side of the field watching you what you're doing. But when they're noticing all the mistakes you're making, and then they become the organizer, and the next thing you know, the person sitting on the side of the field, he's the manager. He's telling you what to do. Yeah.
Okay, I go for a coffee, please. And then Americano, and then scone, please.
And
That's
then
included, is it? In the, oh, okay,
another
it's lovely.
adult, tea and a tray bake.
Yeah, so it's just this week
Yeah.
that we have left, okay?
That's fine.